It's Wednesday, 20 to 12, on the 4th of November 2020, and I'm talking to you now because the American presidential vote, Senate and Congressman vote has been going on since yesterday, and as things currently stand, it's a very, very close race between the Republicans and the Democrats, and therefore Biden and Trump as to who becomes president of the United States. But one thing is crystal clear, and that is that people do not listen to what they're told. As a direct consequence of coronavirus pandemic, many, many, many more Americans have chosen to use their right to mail in their vote as opposed to turn up on the day and cast their vote. Now, that means what? Well, it seems very locked in that Americans have, by and large, voted thusly. The bulk of Democratic voters, those who are voting for the Democratic Party, I should say, have chosen to mail in their ballots, and the bulk of Republican voters have chosen to turn up on the day. This probably is as a consequence of one group being significantly more concerned about the coronavirus outbreak than the other, which the president has sought to play down really since the start. And his base most certainly have not been altogether concerned about the virus, which I think they've broadly accepted isn't a democratic hoax anymore, but they certainly think that it's been blown out of all proportion. Now, the way that the American system works is piecemeal. Some states are equipped and positioned to report their mail-in votes extremely quickly, whereas others, as a result of arcane rulings that are different, as I say, by state, won't be ready to fully announce their mail-in portion of the vote until several days after the election. But we knew this going in. And the media machine is fully aware of that, but they're also fully aware of how big a ratings event the on-the-day election results is. You know, the advertising that comes along with it. So there's still obviously an awful lot of hype about the on-the-day voting. Okay. Understandable, because, you know, people want to know as soon as possible who actually is going to be leading the country going forward. But it doesn't matter how many times you read the numbers and how many times you say the numbers and who declares who's won and who declares who hasn't. Until every vote is counted, the vote isn't finished. Trump is continuing his rhetoric with regards to how mail-in voting is leading to fraud and how the Democrats are just adding votes in key areas just to fudge the numbers and push their guy to victory. Well, no, I'm sorry, that's simply not how it works. If you're allowing absentee ballot for whatever reason, then those votes must be counted. And each state is allowed its own law as to what the process is there. Some states, your ballot's got to be in before the election day or on the election day. Some states, your ballot can get there up to 3 days afterwards, I believe. As long as it's postmarked by the day of the vote, your vote should still be counted. Pennsylvania falls into this category, and of course Pennsylvania is one of the tightest races in the election at the current time. This is very simple. You cannot call an election based on an incomplete partial count of the vote. And my sincere concern is that by seeking to undermine confidence in the voting process as a means to pushing your own agenda and getting Trump re-elected, what the Republicans are doing is going to result, I think, in death. Some of Trump's supporters have demonstrated that they are quite happy to take up arms and plan for and threaten to, and indeed in some cases just outright murder people that they disagree with. And by creating a narrative wherein the election might appear to be stolen from out of nowhere, people are going to feel disenfranchised. They're going to feel like they had victory in their hand, and then through arcane machinations it was stolen from them, whereas this is simply not the case. Now in the end, once all the ballots have been accounted for, checked and counted, if it turns out that the Republicans have won the electoral college votes that they need to put Trump back in the White House for 4 more years, then the Democrats are just going to have to accept it. And if that count proves the opposite, then I do not think that the Republican voting base is going to be able to accept it, because they've been presented with this idea that the election is going to be stolen. Quite frankly, the electoral process, or rather the campaigning process undertaken by the Democrats has been weak and ineffectual. What do they stand for? Why should you have voted Biden? The basis that, well, he's not Donald Trump. Hey, that might not be enough to sell it to some people, Oh, I forgot to do my mail-in ballot, so it's the day of the election. Can I really be bothered to get out there and vote for a guy on the basis of a negative? I'm voting for Biden because he's not Donald Trump isn't very inspirational. And yet here we are. We could be a few days away from blood on the streets of the United States of America, on the basis that they couldn't get their electoral process sorted out to satisfaction of everybody in advance of the election taking place. Reminds me in many ways of the situation in the United Kingdom, where we've got a first past the post system which ensures that vote after vote after vote of people in areas throughout the country simply do not count. We're looking, as ever, into the blue sky, misty oasis of proportional representation. But that wouldn't help the Conservatives, and since they hold the reins of power, that's never going to change whilst it's their watch. Democracy is under threat. Democracy is in danger. There are no two ways about it. Fascism is on the rise. Democracy is under threat. And what's going to be the next step? What will it take to force people out onto the streets, to push the issue of change? How are we going to get the apparently the 3.5% of voters needed to force a review of things? 3.5%, I believe, taking part in non-violent protests targeted to cause disruption to the system. I don't know. The I'm all right, Jack mentality pervades. I just hope that there is a future for us to push our way into that allows for a more progressive mindset, a more fair mindset, something where the money and power isn't just in the hands of the few, but rather, shared with everyone. But in order to achieve that, I think people are going to have to learn to listen a little better. Learn to listen to what their politicians are really saying to them. Think about who stands to benefit. Don't end up in a position where you can't believe that the leopard is eating your face. Because a lot of the ruling class doesn't care about you. They don't want to see you succeed. They're just out to line their own pockets and the pockets of their friends and the pockets of the families that have been in power for generations. But there are plenty of politicians out there who do care. There are plenty of politicians out there that actually want to work towards a better future for everybody. And it is incumbent on you to seek those out. Find people who represent the values that you stand for and support them.